Hi, it's Katrina and today I'm talking about Middlemarch by George Eliot. First of all, I'm going to give my non-spoilery thoughts and then move into a more spoilery discussion. This isn't going to be a super analytical video. You know, I'm not talking a huge amount about themes and symbolism and that kind of thing, but I really enjoyed this book. I wanted to give a review for it. This was first published in a serialised format between 1871 and 1872. It is set several years before that, sort of pre-Victorian era. It's an ensemble cast story set in and around this town called Middlemarch. A lot of the stately houses, some vicarages, and also people who live within the towns themselves. We have marriages, falling in and out of love, we have births and deaths. The majority of the main characters in this novel are young people finding their way in the world. They're falling in and out of love, trying to decide what direction their life is going to take them, making mistakes along the way, annoying one another along the way. This had a couple of slow moments for me, but a lot of drama. Everything sort of wrapped up and crashed together towards the end, and honestly I was on the edge of my seat. I did a mixture of reading and listening to this. I both read this physical copy, which is around the 900 page mark, 889 pages, and I also listened to the audiobook, and I listened to the version narrated by Juliet Stevenson. It was excellent, highly recommend. The amount of expression and characterization and just wit that Juliet Stevenson put through in her voice was just amazing. Thoroughly recommend. The writing in this is just excellent. I even folded over a couple of corners and underlined a couple of sections, which I rarely do. Some really excellent just throwaway lines even in this. Hilarious dialogue, insane goings on, a lot of heart and love. Thoroughly recommend. Worth all the effort to get through this chunker. So into the spoilery discussion section. My favourite character was probably Dorothea. She goes through so much. She's this kind of pompous feeling character at the start. You could tell that she's quite conflicted even from the start, but my heart absolutely broke for her with Casaubon. I was so happy when he died. That initial letter that he wrote proposing to her was so flowery and overdrawn, and I laughed out loud with that. That was the first instance where I really just laughed with this book. Like, he is so ridiculous. Then it's so sad when they're together in Rome and she's just discovering like there's just no more to this man. He's dusty, and she talks about his mind being, instead of this like open field of knowledge and experience, it's just like a dusty little labyrinth, and she discovers his research isn't really going anywhere, all the way up to the sort of dramatic conclusion of their relationship. Ladislaw's just adoration of her, and the way that Rosamund down a few pegs, or like several thousand pegs, was hilarious to me. I hated and loved Rosamund. I thought she was an excellent character, but I hated her, but she was so well written. She just thought she was the most beautiful thing ever, and maybe she was, but she's so conceited. Whenever she was talking, there would be lines like, and she turned her elegant neck like a swan or an other elegant bird. And it was so funny because that's just clearly the way that she's thinking of herself, as this like nymph and elf-like, and doesn't understand how other people just aren't falling over themselves to make her life perfect. It took him preferring Dorothea over her to just crash everything around her. I'm glad that she had to sort of come up into the end, and it all sort of evened out, but I really felt for Lydgate. And then he chose to marry her, so that was their relationship. I thought was hilarious. The only character that was a sort of main character that I didn't really enjoy reading was Fred Vincy. I found him really quite annoying. I'm glad that of the character progression that he went through. I didn't really see why Mary Garth loved him so much, and the way he kept constantly being like, but you love me, right? You won't love anyone else. And he was so pouty whenever she was even just talking to Fairbrother. That annoyed me. Celia also got really annoying after her marriage. Her whole thing with Arthur about how the baby was just the most beautiful thing, and that was really funny, some of her sections with him, but it did get quite annoying towards the end. And I was like, okay, shut up about Arthur now. But maybe that's just because I don't really like kids. Whenever Raffles turned up, he was quite ominous and really sinister. I loved his character, though also hated him. Well, and I loved Caleb Garth. At first I thought it was quite boring, but as time went on we saw how noble a man he really was. I really loved Caleb towards the end, and everything that he did for Fred and Mary, that was lovely as well. And the comic relief of the story has to be mentioned as well, Mr. Brooke and his bumbling sort of, oh yes, don't you know, I loved him as well. Just sweet, but he was also quite annoying. To counteract all the sort of soap opera drama, this book also had so much political intrigue going on. We had the discussion around the railway, the medical conflicts that Lydgate was having, the threat of cholera coming. That was really interesting as well, though I did find the whole railway bit in the middle that slowed things down. A few of the political parts did slow down, but then I also think that's because I actually don't know that much about that kind of era in English history. I don't know that much about history, full stop. I'm trying to get better, learn more, read more, watch more, but honestly I'm not super familiar with it, so I think that's maybe partly my own fault more than anything else. This book discussed a lot and had a lot to do with the theme of gender, a woman's place in the household. Through all the different relationships and marriages, we saw that coming through differently, all the way from Rosamund, which you just absolutely wanted to slap anytime that she took any action at all the way to Dorothea being repressed by her husband and you just wanting for her to be allowed some freedom, and her being vindicated at the end. She's gonna have that freedom and that happiness. Seeing all the different dynamics through all the different relationships I thought was really interesting. I did enjoy that discussion and how ultimately in a lot of the ways the women did know better and they just needed to be given that chance or take that chance themselves. So that's it for my sort of informal discussion slash thoughts on Middlemarch by George Eliot. Like I say, I really recommend this book. I read The Mill and the Floss a good number of years ago and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it at the time, and I can't wait to reread it now, being a bit more mature and seeing what more it has to offer for me. I also can't wait to read Silas Marner. The Vintage Classics edition cover of it is gorgeous, so I'm really excited to pick that up. My next video is my Tome Topple TBR. I'm really excited to do this readathon because I've not done one in ages. And my previous video was my March book haul, which will be linked right here if you'd like to go watch that. All my other links are in the description: Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to see more videos from me. I post about twice a week. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Bye.